So I want to thank you all for attending this webinar this evening. My name is Nicole Weissing. I'm the Assistant Director at Muhlenberg College, or the Assistant Director of Financial Aid at Muhlenberg College. This presentation is I'm going to go over some loan information, mainly at loans through the Department of Education, so federal loans. And then I'm also going to touch base on student employment and just some important things that you and your student need to know regarding loan requirements and just some loan information before you maybe make that decision if your student will be utilizing the loans for next year or not. And then just again, some additional information about the student employment program and some things that they may need to bring to campus with them if they're planning on having or utilizing student employment for next year. And like I said, I have a section, I'm going to leave plenty of time at the end to answer any questions. So please feel free to put them in the chat and I'll make sure to address them. So our agenda for this evening, we're going to talk about how to apply for direct loans. First things first, students need to be aware of where their aid offer is and that they need to accept it. The types of loans that a student can be eligible for. The loan entrance counseling and master promissory note, which are both requirements for the student to receive the loans. I'm also going to touch briefly on Parent Plus loans, and then we're going to discuss student employment, how a student would apply for a job, and the I-9 documentation that they need to bring with them to campus. And then, like I said, at the end, we'll do some Q&A, and I'll try to get to everyone's question if you want to put those in the chat as we go. Okay, so applying and receiving direct loans. So the way that a student applies for the direct loans is by completing the FAFSA. And as we were talking a little earlier, the FAFSA is an annual application. So you have the opportunity to start the FAFSA for the following year as of October 1st. When they complete the application, they are technically applying for a federal Pell Grant, the federal direct subsidized loan, federal direct unsubsidized loan. But again, they do need to complete it annually to be considered for all three of those. So first things first, we want to make sure that all students are aware that they do have a financial aid portal. It is separate from their one login portal. So I provided the link in this presentation. There's also a screenshot at the bottom to show you just what that homepage looks like, where they would log in. In order to find their online portal login page, what you would do is if you go to admissions, under the admissions tab, you'll go to financial aid. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see a tab that says financial aid online. If you click on that, you'll see a link to the login portal. So that's how a student will get to the login. If they're a first-time user, you'd see at the bottom, they'll click on that first-time user, or if they forgot their password, they have the option to create a new password. If a student has problems logging into their portal, please do not hesitate to have them reach out to our office. We can help them if they stop into our office in person. They can send us an email or they can contact us as well. We can either help reset their password or we can help them log in if they're a first-time user. Once a student logs in, when they get to their home page, in the top left corner, they're going to see a link called menu. When they click on that menu, there's going to be a drop-down box. This is where they would go depending on what they're going on to their portal to see. So to accept their aid, they'll go to accept financial aid offer. So click on that link. There's also one to view it. There's a link to see messages and documents. That's where we put up anything that maybe a student needs to provide to our office. So when they go to the accept financial aid offer, what's going to happen is they're going to see their financial aid offer down at the bottom of the page. Next to each award, they're going to have a drop down box and it's going to say accept or decline. Obviously, any grants or scholarships the student would want to accept. However, when they get to the loans, this is where you want to have that discussion about taking on this future debt. They actually have the option to accept, decline, or they can actually reduce their loan as well. So our office on the aid offer will provide the max amount that the student's eligible for, but then the student does have the option to reduce that loan amount if they choose. So we'll talk about the two types of federal direct student loans. One is the subsidized loan, the other is the unsubsidized loan. These loans are pretty much are exactly the same except for one big aspect is the interest rate and when it starts. So for a subsidized loan, the interest is actually paid by the Department of Education while the student is attending an institution at least at a half-time enrollment status. The unsubsidized loan, the interest will start accruing onto the principal balance as soon as that loan has dispersed, even though the student is taking classes. So really that interest rate and when it starts accruing is the big difference between the subsidized and unsubsidized loan. Now, some similarities between both of the loans. Students are not required to make monthly payments while they're enrolled at least half time. They can choose to make monthly payments, but they're not required. So I do suggest sometimes to students, especially that have to utilize that unsubsidized loan, if they can make a monthly payment towards that unsubsidized loan to keep that interest at bay, that is not a bad idea. Again, with the idea that they are, once they leave school and they are in repayment of both of those loans, they're paying basically the principal balance. The nice thing is if they can make a payment maybe 1 month, but they can't make a payment another month, it's okay because the payment is not required at that time. As of right now, there will always be an origination fee for both loans. The government actually will take this origination fee prior to even dispersing the loan to Muhlenberg. So the current origination fee for the 21-22 year is 1.057% of the loan. The current interest rate for 21-22 is 3.73%. We do expect both the interest rate to increase slightly as of July 1st because that starts the new academic year. So we just wanted to at least give you an idea of what the current interest rate is, but your student will have a different interest rate for next year. And the Department of Education will determine that very shortly. They just haven't finalized that information for us yet. So we'll go into the loan requirements. So one thing that's required for the student to utilize a loan, so they have to accept the loan through their financial aid portal, but then they also have to complete the loan entrance counseling. Loan entrance counseling is to make the student an educated borrower about their loan. So what's going to happen is when they go in to do the loan entrance counseling at studentaid.gov, they're going to be given a lot of information regarding their loan. And then what's going to happen is as they go through this information, there are going to be sections where it's going to ask the student multiple choice, true or false, and yes and no questions. It doesn't grade the student on how many questions they get right or wrong. What they're looking for is that the student is reading the information that they're providing. And typically the questions relate to important information like the interest rate, like when does your loan go into repayment, things that the student really needs to know to be an educated borrower. It does take about 20 to 30 minutes to complete. So I would sit down with the student, make some time for you to complete this loan entrance counseling. But it is good for them to do, even if it's with you as the parent, because they are going to be the ones that are the borrower of the loan. So when that loan goes into repayment, that is going to be the student's loan. And we would like to have the loan entrance counseling done by July 1st. At all possible. The other requirement that the student needs to complete is the master promissory note, or you may see it abbreviated as MPN. This is the legal document that the student is signing, saying that they understand that they have to pay these loans back in the future. So when you're going through the master promissory note, again, it is important for the student to be there and do it with you. They are going to ask for 2 references. They're not co-signers, but they're just going to be references. And what will happen with these references, if they need to be contacted at any time, it would be because for some reason the loan borrower is unable to contact the student while the student is in repayment. So again, the references are not co-signers. They're just two people that the Department of Ed, or I should say the facilitating company of the loan, can reach out to inquire on contact information for the student. Um, Again, the deadline for this, we would like to have it done by July 1st, if at all possible. The master promissory note, it takes a little less, about 10-15 minutes to complete. So it's a little easier. So I would say altogether, between the loan entrance counseling and the master promissory note, I would try to put maybe at least an hour aside, because you are going to have the student sign in to do the loan entrance counseling and master promissory note using their FSA ID and password. So it's not parents, it's the students that you're going to use to sign in to complete both of these requirements. So sometimes if maybe don't remember the password or username, might take you a little bit just to do to get that information, if you do like the forgot username or forgot password. So again, put about an hour aside one evening prior to July 1st to sit down and complete the master promissory note and loan entrance counseling. So I'm going to touch briefly on Parent Plus loans, because it is another department. It's a loan through the Department of Education as well. It does follow a lot of the same requirements and repayment options as the federal direct loans. So the parent would apply for this loan. What would happen is the Department of Education would be the loan servicer. The parent would be the borrower, but the funds would come to Muhlenberg to be applied towards the student's aid offer, and then eventually towards their tuition statement. So the parent would apply through studentaid.gov again. Now, when you're doing the Parent Plus loan application and the Parent Plus loan master promissory note, both of those things, the parent is going to use their FSA ID and password to log into the system, to log into studentaid.gov to complete both of those requirements. You do need to apply for this annually. If you're choosing, you can apply per semester. I would recommend doing it annually because it is applying for a loan, so it does do a credit check every time you apply. So a lot of people say, well, how do I know, how much to take out for the spring semester when I only have my fall tuition balance? So typically what happens is, whatever the balance is, at the out-of-pocket balance for the fall semester, most likely is going to be the same for the spring semester. Students' aid offers typically don't change, and their charges typically don't change, unless the only things that could possibly change is if there's a meal plan change or a housing change. But again, those things very rarely happen. So if you see on the fall statement bill that after the tuition, all the financial aid is subtracted from the tuition, let's say there's an out-of-pocket balance of $5,000, what I would recommend is then applying for $10,000 in your Parent Plus loan. And then that way, when we receive your application, our office will split it in half. So 5,000 would go towards fall and 5,000 would go towards spring. And then that would take care of the year for you. And then next year, when you get that fall semester statement, go ahead, you'll do the same thing, apply for the Parent Plus loan, just double the out-of-pocket cost for the fall, because that'll give you the amount for the spring, and you should be good to go. If at any point throughout the year, though, you do find that for some reason, you want to decrease or increase that Parent Plus loan, please just reach out to our office and we will help you do that. Right now, the origination fee for the Parent Plus loan is 4.228%. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to take that into consideration when you're figuring out how much you want to apply for. So in that example of the 5,000 out-of-pocket cost for the fall semester, where I said, double that amount, what you'll want to actually do is probably take that 10,000, apply 4.228% to it, which will then give you the actual amount you would want to take out, because then you want to cover that 5,000 for fall $5,000 for spring, but then you want to make sure you have enough to also cover that origination fee. So instead of $10,000, you might be finding yourself taking out maybe more like $1,100 or $1,200, just to make sure that you have enough for the balance and the origination fee. I apologize that may have been a little confusing. Just to let you know as well, the current interest rate for 21-22 for the Parent Plus loan is 6.28%. We do again expect that interest rate may increase for the 22-23 award year. So that would start July 1st. We should again know prior to July 1st what the Department of Education is going to have that interest rate at for next year. And then you also, just like the direct student loans, you want to make sure that you complete the Plus Master Promissory Note. Again, that's the legal document as the parent you're signing, saying that you understand you have to pay the Parent Plus loan back in the future. Okay, so we're going to switch gears. We're going to talk about the Student Employment Program. So this program is offered to eligible students. It allows them to work on campus and earn funds distributed directly to them in the form of a check. So you will not actually see their student employment award go towards their tuition balance. So when you get your statement, your semester statement for the fall in probably around June, you will not see listed the student and I apologize, the student worker award. So what'll happen is, instead of it going directly towards the tuition and fee cost, the student will actually earn a monthly paycheck. The max amount that a student can earn in a year is $1,800. Students typically receive $8 an hour. And then again, they receive a monthly paycheck that goes directly towards them. Typically students work 8 or less hours per week. It kind of depends on the student's schedule and the need of the department that they're working in. All hiring paperwork, including the I-9 documents, do need to be completed prior to the student's first day of work. And I'll talk about, I think in the next slide, what I-9 documents we're talking about and what they'll need to bring on campus. And typically students who earn wages for the prior year, those students are the ones that are considered, or the returning students that are considered to receive it for the following year. So if you're finding that your student as a freshman did not utilize their work study award, then what'll happen is they may not see it for the next year as a sophomore. They may have to reach out to our office. They can request that we re-review their aid offer to determine if they can be eligible for the student employment funds, but it's not a guarantee. And unfortunately, even if a student does have the student employment funds as an aid on their aid offer, an award on their aid offer, it's not a guarantee that they will have a position, and I'll talk about why in a moment. So in order to receive a position on campus, so our office will put the award on their aid offer. However, the student needs to seek out a position. So they would do this by going on Handshake. It's a program through their one login. On Handshake is where all the available posted positions are listed for all departments on campus. So any department that is looking to hire a student worker, they would post their position there. We will notify students once all the positions have been posted. Students that are eligible for student employment will be able to view all the positions. There are some positions that students do not have to have the aid offer for this award. They can be paid through department funds. So that's an option as well if your student did not receive work study on their aid offer. Once the student finds a position that they're interested in, which I would recommend a student may be picking 2 to 3 positions to apply for, because there is an interview process with this supervisor. And then once that interview has been completed, then that's when our office would send the student the hiring paperwork electronically. So what they'll do is they will get a Adobe Sign employment agreement from the financial aid office. The student will fill it out electronically, and it gets sent to all the appropriate departments to be reviewed and processed. Now, their I-9 documents, or I should say the I-9 original documents, do need to be brought to the Office of Financial Aid in person. This is one part of the hiring process that we cannot do electronically per the federal government. And again, I'll talk more about the I-9 documents a little later. So once the student has completed the Adobe Sign employment agreement, they've provided their I-9 documents to our office, then what'll happen is they'll start working and they'll submit their hours through their one login under student and staff tools. I would highly recommend within the student employment agreement, there is a direct deposit form. We do recommend that students take advantage of the direct deposit form because if they don't, what happens is their monthly paycheck will be sent home. And a lot of students need to use those funds while they're on campus. So just to make it easier for everyone, if they would like, they can do the direct deposit and then they would receive their funds monthly, or like I said, the business payroll office would send a check home to their home address via the mail. Okay, so the I-9 documents. So the purpose of the I-9 documents is to provide proof of identity and proof of authorization of employment. And again, these are requirements through the federal government regarding, hiring anyone. So we have to see the originals of these documents. We can't accept copies or a picture. I'm going to go over each list. So if you look at list 1, this provides proof of both the identity and the authorization of employment. So the student can provide a U.S. passport or passport card. Again, it would need to be the original. They can provide a permanent resident card, an employment authorization document card. So those 3 documents, the student can bring one of those, and that's all they would need to provide to us. Please make sure that the document is not expired and it's valid. So we can't take anything that's expired, like an expired passport, unfortunately, wouldn't be valid. Now, if the student doesn't have one of those 3 documents, then we'll look at list 2 and list 3. So for proof of identity, the student can bring a driver's license or state ID, their Berg ID card with their legal name on it, or military ID. Now, again, they all have to be valid and they cannot be expired. And I apologize, the Berg ID and military ID, they both have to have the student's legal name on them. So if your student has like a preferred name on their Berg ID, then they wouldn't be able to use the Berg ID as proof of identity. It has to have their legal name. And then, so with one of those 3 things from list 2, they would also need to bring one document from list 3 for the authorization of employment. So this could be their Social Security card, their U.S. birth certificate, a certificate of birth abroad, certificate of reported birth, U.S. citizen ID card or green card, and their employment authorization document issued by Homeland Security. So the student would need to either bring one document from list 1 or 2 documents, one from list 2 and one from list 3 to fulfill the requirements. And again, we cannot accept copies. And they have to be the originals. We can't accept pictures. What we are going to suggest is you can bring these documents with you to the summer advising if you like. it will put it on the student's record that we have seen the document. Now, it doesn't guarantee them a position on campus because, again, they would still have to go to Handshake, apply for a position, and do the interview process. However, if your student does ultimately find a position on campus that they want to work at, that would just be one less thing that they would have to provide through the hiring process. So again, you can bring that to summer advising. It just does not guarantee the student a position on campus. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the chat and see what kind of questions we have. Okay, so it looks like the first question is, when should we start looking for loans? So the student should already have the direct loans on their aid offer from filling out the FAFSA. So if you're looking for alternative loans, you can start, I would start looking into that now. So this is where when you kind of want to do your research, determine, what loan lender you want to use. I would not start applying for the loan quite yet. So you'll want to wait to apply until, I would say, at least until June, after maybe summer advising. So once your student is registered, hopefully, excuse me, give me one second. Hopefully shortly after the summer advising is when the business office will start notifying families of their fall semester invoice being available. So around in June, I would say, is when you would want to start applying for any alternative ones. But again, I wouldn't start applying now because usually the credit check is good for about 3 months, and we typically don't start certifying alternative loans until August because it won't disperse until the first day of the semester. So you don't want to do it too soon, but I would definitely do it before August. So I would say the month of July is probably that perfect spot. So the next question is, will there be a replay link sent out to view recorded sessions after this ends? I am hoping to get this recording up on our website. This is my second session that I'm doing. So once this session's over, I would like to work with our IT office to make it available online through the financial aid, either the financial aid portal or at least through Muhlenberg on our financial aid sites. Next question is, can a student fill out the FAFSA without parents' information? So it's a good question. Now, it's a tricky question too. So a student can fill out the FAFSA without their parent information. However, depending on, there's 3 requirements that the Department of Ed is required prior to automatically making you what's called an independent student. So the requirements are, you have to be 24 or older, married, or have your own dependent that you support more than 50% of their well-being. So if you don't fit any of those requirements, what's going to happen is when our office receives the FAFSA or your FAFSA, it's going to come to us and say it's rejected because it doesn't have that parent information. Now at that point, I would recommend the student contact our office because you know that you're submitting your FAFSA without your parent information, and we would probably want to have a conversation with you about kind of what's going on, why you aren't able to provide the parent information. And at that point, we can potentially use what's called professional judgment to determine if you should be awarded as an independent student. But each case is definitely individualized. So I would recommend, if you submit your FAFSA without parent information, and you don't automatically qualify in those 3 requirements, submit your FAFSA, but let our office know that you're submitting it without parent information, and we'll kind of go from there. Next question, is there a deadline for accepting aid that are not loans. I would say you'll probably want to have it accepted prior to August 1st at the latest, because what happens is we do start dispersing on the first day of the semester. So, just to make sure that there's no delays in that process, I would recommend at least by August 1st, making sure that you have the aid accepted. And I would try to make a decision regarding the loans as well by then, because there is a little more for us to do when it comes to the loans regarding certifying them, notifying the Department of Ed that the student's taking the loan out, things like that. So there's a lot of stuff on the back end that our office still has to continue to do. But August 1st would probably be good. Let's see. Next question is interest on loan unsubsidized added to interest owed in principal or just principal? Let's see, is the origin okay. So I think I apologize. Interest on loan on unsubsidized added to interest owed and principal or just principal. So for the unsubsidized loan, once the student is in repayment, they would be paying the principal balance plus all the interest that accrued on their loan from the time that loan was dispersed. So if they take out a unsubsidized loan in their freshman year, as soon as that loan's dispersed for the fall, that fall portion will start accruing interest. And then the spring portion, once that's dispersed, that'll start accruing interest as well. But then those two loans will continue to accrue that interest while the student's in school. So that could potentially be, 4 years worth of interest that's accruing on that unsubsidized loan. And then what would happen is when the student goes into repayment, they would be repaying the principal balance plus that accrued interest. Now, just as an example too, if they take out an unsubsidized loan in their senior year, the interest rate on that unsubsidized loan, because these are individual loans each year, is going to be less, only because, the fall dispersed and then it starts accruing, probably accrue about 6 to 8 months worth of interest. The spring will probably accrue about 4 months of interest. And then, the student will be in repayment very shortly. So my suggestion always is, if you're going to make any type of payment towards loans, try to do the unsubsidized loan and try to do the oldest. Again, that way you're paying that you're not really touching the principal balance, but at least if you can keep that interest low, or at least paid, that'll just lessen the amount of interest that you're paying once the student's in repayment after graduation. And is the origination fee paid each time you take a loan or just the first time? So the origination fee applies to every time a loan's dispersed. And again, that's funds that the Department of Ed takes prior to Muhlenberg even receiving the money. Next question is, do we need to get the loan through Muhlenberg? So there really are no loans like that you would get through Muhlenberg. So Muhlenberg will never be your loan lender. There used to be a program called the Perkins loans quite a few years ago, where the school could potentially be the loan lender, but that program no longer is in process. So all your loans that you would take out, if they're any type of direct loan through the federal government, what happens is the Department of Education is the loan lender, and then there are servicers that will be assigned to the student and their loan. So then the student will work with that servicer to basically repay back the Department of Education. But there isn't any loan where Muhlenberg would be the lender and you would be paying your loan back to Muhlenberg. We just receive the loan funds. Next question, can the student access the studentaid.gov site now to complete the entrance counseling? Very good question. They can. However, we're going to recommend that they wait until June, at least June 1st, to start doing their loan entrance counseling and master promissory note. Again, only because there is a lifespan. Loan entrance counseling, I believe, is good for about 10 years, where the master promissory note is good for 4. So if the student does it too early, they might have to do one again come their senior year. But it is on the website. You can demo the loan entrance counseling and master promissory note if you want to at least take a look at, what the student will be doing. So you guys can take a look at that on studentaid.gov now. But yes, of course, the student can go in log on to studentaid.gov now and complete those 2 requirements. Our office just recommends that you wait until at least June 1st. When do we find out what the semester cost is? So it's a very good question. I don't believe that our business office has a exact date of when they're going to make the fall semester statements available. However, I would think that they would be coming out with that information very soon. I know it will be after summer advising, because once a student is registered, that kind of completes all their charges. So it would be in June that you would receive the fall semester statement, and the business office will be reaching out with more information. And let's see, next question is $8 an hour. And someone commented less than minimum wage, and it is. And so one thing that you have to keep in mind with the work study is minimum wage looks at a livable working wage. So when we're talking about minimum wage, when, for people that are working, like a lot of parents like you and I, we need to make a livable wage, where the work study positions, it's more or less for experience, to have the convenience of working on campus. Their living situation is actually already being covered by their financial aid, because if you think about it, their dorm room, we're already taking that in consideration, that cost, when we're looking at their aid offer, because that's part of the cost of attendance. Their meal plan is part of that as well. So without having any type of work study funds, the students' meals and housing are already covered. Really, if a student is utilizing the work study program, those funds that they're receiving, a lot of students just use that for any other out-of-pocket cost, like if they have to go to the grocery store, if they need shampoo, toothpaste, if they want to go out and have dinner with friends, things like that. So really, it's kind of like an addition to. The other most important thing about work study, I know, as we said, $8 an hour, but really students are getting the experience. And sometimes that's priceless, because this is something that can potentially help them start building their resume. It could give them experience working in a professional office environment, build those customer service skills. Personally, actually, this is being a work study student is how I started in financial aid, and I have grown into the position that I am now. So really, you put into as much as the student puts into it is what they'll get out of it. And I suggest to students, when you're looking for positions, look outside of your major too. If you're, say, a theater major, maybe, you're taking theater classes, you're getting all that experience, but it might also help if you look into maybe a work study position that's in a professional office, like the financial aid office, or the business office, somewhere where you're going to learn those professional customer service skills. It just gives you a different aspect of things. And again, it's that resume builder and earning that experience that you're getting, that maybe you wouldn't get if you, say, went outside of campus, and got a job that maybe paid more an hour, but maybe it wouldn't give you that professional experience that you need. The other good thing about the work study program is you're always a student first. We understand during finals weeks, we're not going to see you. We don't really expect to see students working those weeks. When you go home for breaks and holidays, we don't expect to see you. So you're always a student first, and that is a very important aspect of the work study program as well. So I hope, those experience also counteract or counterbalance, the $8 hourly wage. The next question is, can a student apply for a job anytime in the year? And yes, they can. So students, they're continuously posting positions on Handshake. So students can apply, maybe fall isn't a good semester for them, or spring. I've had students that are maybe a fall or spring athlete. So in one of those semesters, they don't have a lot of time to devote to a position, between their classes and clubs and their sport. But then, the next semester, when they don't have that sport, then they have that additional time. So of course, students can definitely look for a position. They don't have to just be hired in the beginning of the year. They can look throughout the year. The next question is, does your office provide information on lenders if more loans are needed? So yes, we do. A great resource we have on our financial aid website. If you go to muhlenberg.edu, and in the search box, if you put in alternative financing, the first link that'll come up will say alternative financing. When on that page, it's going to talk about the payment plan option through the business office. It's going to talk about Parent Plus loans, but then it's also going to talk about alternative loans. In the alternative loan section, there's going to be a link to what's called Elm Select. It's a company that we partnered with to provide families with alternative loan lender information. So it's really great because what it'll actually give you is it'll give you 10 plus lenders that some you may have heard of, some may you have not. But what it allows you to do is on Elm Select, it lets you compare those loans and the loan lenders. So you can look at interest rates ahead of time. And if you find one that you are interested in, you can apply directly through the Elm Select. So again, if you go to muhlenberg.edu, in the search box, put in alternative lending, or I'm sorry, alternative financing. Then scroll down to the alternative loans, and you'll see the link for Elm Select. And it's just such a better resource than trying to Google, student loans. You're going to get everything and anything, and probably more than even what you want. So it's really a great place to start off if you're just starting to look at loan lenders. Next question is, would the student bring their I-9 form when they go for freshman orientation or earlier/later? So the I-9 document, the student can bring it with them to the freshman orientation if they want. They would need to specifically come down to the Office of Financial Aid because we would be the ones that would need to view it. Again, like I said earlier in the presentation, it won't necessarily guarantee them a position because they would still have to find the position on Handshake, apply, and interview, but we'll put their information on their account with us so that when they do find a position, they wouldn't have to provide that information to us again. Or they can wait until they have an interview and they have been accepted into a position. And then at that time, they can bring their I-9 documentation to our office. So it's up to you. We just caution that if it is later in, let's say, the fall semester, make sure that they bring they bring something for their I-9 documents, or you might be mailing a U.S. passport to them, preferably not their social security card. But if you can give them one of those documents to bring with them and have on campus, then they don't have to provide it to us right away. Or if they live close enough to go home one weekend and get that information, that would be fine as well. The next question is, what type of jobs would the student employment program be? So we have all types of jobs on campus. They range from the theater and dance to the art studios, We have in the Office of Financial Aid, we have work study students. Athletics has work study students. The mailroom has work study students. So there are a lot of different positions that students can look for. But again, I would recommend when looking on Handshake and applying, students do maybe pick 2 or 3 positions that they'd be interested in. That way when they interview, if they have more of a choice then of where they would like to work. Okay. The next question is direct loans. Is the max loan amount available to our student? What is provided in the financial aid offer? Example is the only other loan option is the Parent Plus loan with a higher origination fee and interest rate. So the direct loans would be already provided to you and the student in the student's aid offer. So whatever the max amount is on their aid offer. So at this point, they have the option to accept, decline, or reduce that loan. Now, you can apply for the Parent Plus loan, or like I said in that last question, in a couple questions back, if you want to look into alternative loan lending, you can do that as well. I have had some parents say, if I can find a better interest rate through another loan lender than the Parent Plus loan is providing, can I do that? And of course you can. You definitely need to do what's best for you and the student. Some parents also will look into maybe not an alternative loan or Parent Plus loan, but you can look into other things as well that are kind of outside of the box, where maybe a home equity loan would have a better interest rate for you. Or if you want to borrow against your like a retirement plan, you can also borrow against I believe it's a whole life insurance policies, where those 2 options, at least you're borrowing and paying yourself back. So we don't recommend necessarily taking the funds out of your retirement, but if you can borrow against it, you might receive a better interest rate. Again, I'm not a financial expert by any means, but those are just some of the things that are kind of outside of the box of, a student loan. So, again, whatever loan options are best for you and your financial situation, please feel free to do what's best for you. Okay, so let's see. Next question. To clarify, there are certain jobs that are only open to students in their first year and only if you have the work option in your financial aid offer. So there are some positions on campus that will only hire students that have the work study financial aid award component in their aid offer. There are other positions that are able to hire using department funds. It's kind of up to the department if they have those additional funds to hire students. Some departments honestly just don't have the additional funds in their budget. So that's why they rely on the student having the student employment award on their aid offer. But some departments will also hire both. So I would just see, have the student go on Handshake and just see at least what's available. Another part is that, and if you don't take those jobs in your first year or take a year off from those jobs, it becomes difficult to get the job back. So what I would say is if the student wants to, so let's just say the student has a current position in our office, the financial aid office, and maybe they need to take a semester off because they're in a sport, or, maybe they just need to take a year off because they need to, focus on their education. That's fine. I always tell people, keep the lines of communication open. I would recommend to that student, please let us know. Let's talk about, a game plan. Let us know what your plans are for, that semester or that year. Now, in the meantime, we may have to hire another student depending on our office needs. But I would not think that we would turn a student down if they came back to our office. Now, regarding the first year, so if the student is currently a freshman and they choose not to utilize the work study award that was in their aid offer, when our office goes to award their aid offer for their sophomore year, that student most likely will not see the student employment in their aid offer for their sophomore year because they did not earn funds in their freshman year. Now, in that case, what the student can do is contact our office and they can request that we review their aid offer to determine if there's room to provide them with the work study funds. It's just that their initial aid offer right off the bat would not have that student working aid component in their aid offer. I hope that answered your questions. Next question is, does Muhlenberg accept credit cards as payment? We sure do. So that would go through the business office, and you would actually make all your electronic payments through a program called Nelnet. The business office should be sending families out more information regarding Nelnet and how to make that payment and set up. I believe there's like a parent portal that you can set up through Nelnet. So that way parents can make payments towards a student's account, through their own kind of system through Nelnet. But again, if you want more information regarding that, the business office would be able to answer any questions regarding Nelnet, or if you want to set up maybe a payment plan using a credit card, you could do that as well. The business office, their contact information is business office, all lowercase, one word, at muhlenberg.edu. You can also contact them at, I believe, 484-664-3150. So again, that's 484-664-3150. And again, they can answer any questions you have regarding making payments or a payment plan. Let's see, next question. Do you think an athlete would have enough time to work the 8 hours per week? Honestly, I'm going to say probably not. So they can work less. Most students, their max is typically 8 hours a week. Now, again, with the lines of communication, if they are in a fall sport, so, maybe they can only work 2 or 3 hours a week, or maybe not at all while they're in their sport. I would let have them have that conversation with their supervisor and then say, I'm in this sport for the fall, but then it's over come the spring. So at that time, if I'm able to, increase my hours, my schedule will have more flexibility. So again, I would just recommend having that communication with the supervisor and student. And another question, can you pay those loans off at any time? Of course, and that goes for the direct loan, so that subsidized and unsubsidized loan, and the Parent Plus loan. You're not required to make payments while the student is in school at least half time, but you can make payments. So if you're able to pay those loans off prior to the student graduating or shortly after, you can definitely do that. And there are no penalties for paying it off early. Let me see. Is interest compounded or simply during college before repayment is due? So the interest would, let me just make sure. Interest compounders. So the interest would end up being compounded because on that unsubsidized loan, the interest will just continue to accrue. So it'll accrue while the student's in school, but it'll accrue once they leave as well. What you may want to also look into, or the student would want to look into after they graduate, is potentially taking those loans and consolidating them into, basically what they would do is it would be two loans. So each year when if you're taking out one subsidized loan and one unsubsidized loan each year, ultimately it's going to be, you know, it'll end up being 8 loans altogether, 4 subsidized, 4 unsubsidized. What the student can do at the end, once they've graduated, they can choose to consolidate those loans. And what would happen is the lender would take all of the subsidized loans, make them one loan, take all the unsubsidized loans, make them one loan. And that would also include that compounded interest as well. And then what would happen is the interest would just be based off of, that consolidated loan amount. So that's an option as well when the student graduates. I'm not sure if I answered that question, but let me know if I didn't. Next question is, can you take out a loan for all 4 years, or is it better to apply every year? I would recommend don't take a loan out for all 4 years. And the reason being is when our office awards students, it's yearly. So if you take out, say you take out an alternative loan for $50,000 and we get that information, what's going to happen is we can't award the student a $50,000 loan because there can only be awarded up to their cost of attendance. So ultimately what would end up happening is we wouldn't be able to award them that full loan amount anyway. So I would recommend, doing your loans annually. And sometimes you don't know either if you're doing the FAFSA each year, financial situations change. And it's 4 years. So, hopefully, things stay the same for the family financially in those 4 years. But if they don't, you could see slight changes in the aid offer depending on, the financial situation for the household. Let's see. Next question is, are you guaranteed to get a job if you want/apply? We can't guarantee the positions because it kind of depends on like how many people apply for the job, how the interviews go, and really ultimately who's hired is up to the supervisor. Then the supervisor just tells our office who they're hiring for that position. So unfortunately, it's not a guarantee. And that's why I would recommend students apply for 2 or 3 positions on Handshake. Next question is, when can they apply on Handshake? So the student's actually going to receive an email from our office, and it's going to let them know that the positions are all posted on Handshake. And that they can go in and they can start looking for jobs. I believe it typically happens in July. So then that way, when they get on campus in August, they can start doing the interviews. Let's see. Okay. Oh, okay. I think I caught up on all the questions, which is good timing since it's a little after 8. Let me go. I apologize. I should provide you with our contact information, my contact information. So please feel free to reach out to the Office of Financial Aid at any time for any reason. We can be reached via email or our telephone number. Again, my name is Nicole Weissing. I'm the Assistant Director of Financial Aid. You can reach me at my email, or you can reach me by calling the office phone. Let's see, I think there was one more question. How would we know the amount in which we have left to pay when it comes to billing? So what will happen is you are going to receive the semester statement from the business office. It's going to list all the charges. It's going to be a breakdown of the charges, and then it's going to be the breakdown of any credits. So that's going to be anything in the aid offer. And then at the bottom, it's going to tell you what their out-of-pocket cost is. And at that time, you can use that amount to either set up a payment plan, pay that payment out of pocket, Or at that point, that's when you want to start maybe applying for those alternative loans or Parent Plus loans, in regards to that remaining balance. But again, I want to thank you all for joining me this evening. I hope I answered a lot of questions. I hope I gave you a lot of good information to walk away with this evening. But again, if you have any questions, please feel free, reach out to myself, reach out to my office. We'd be more than happy to help you. Congratulations on your student being accepted to Muhlenberg. We're so excited to have them. Can't wait to see them on campus come the fall. And, please don't, tell them, don't hesitate to come down to financial aid if they have any questions. We're here to assist, and our office is available Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And we're more than welcome to speak with students that drop in, or families if you're on campus for any admissions events. Please feel free to stop in. Our office is located in the Haas building, which is the clock tower building on the lower level. So please stop by and, even stop by to say hi. So again, thank you all for joining my presentation tonight. And again, if you have any questions that maybe I didn't answer, you think of something after, please feel free. Don't hesitate to reach out and let us know. We'll be more than happy to help you. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and I hope to hear from you all soon. Have a good night.